Hi, this is Chris Ham, the designer of the Strife series of games. This is our video about strategy and some of the differences between the two sets, and that's what we're going to begin with. Okay, for example, some of the differences between the sets are here on this side we have the Artificer and the Alchemist from Shadows and Steam, and the champions of the same numbers from Legacy of the Eternals, the Wizard and the Warrior. And one of the big differences is that with Shadows and Steam, the champions play consistently more powerful with just in their basic form, whereas Legacy of the Eternals grants the opportunity for higher potential power. And an example I'll give of that is the Artificer can place a minion token as his battle ability, which can be placed on the location at the battle in which he's currently at, and effectively make himself an 8. So in a head-to-head battle against the Warrior, with no other considerations, he would be larger. However, the Warrior does shut off his opponent's legacy ability, which means that he will have teamwork and potentially be larger and therefore able to defeat the Artificer despite being smaller. The example of the Alchemist versus the Wizard, their legacy abilities are actually quite similar in that they allow the player to add power to their current battle champion. The Alchemist does this simply by revealing a card from hand and adding half its power rounded up to that of the current battle champion at effectively no cost. But this means the largest amount that it can add is 5 if they're holding their 9. Whereas the Wizard requires the champion to be set aside to add to the power of their current battle champion. However, if they're holding their 9, that means 9 is potentially added for obviously a greater overall power boost. So Shadows and Steam basically plays larger. Legacy of the Eternals has the ability to be bigger overall. Okay, now for another example of a difference between the two sets is the concept of mobility, i.e. setting up to fight at a specific location of your choosing, or somewhat less of a mobility in Shadows and Steam, but where you fashion the battlefield in a manner you desire through the use of tokens. In Legacy of the Eternals, we have up here, for example, the Barbarian, who has the ability to just flat out destroy a location adjacent to his position if, as his battle ability, if he wishes, which is a form of mobility in itself at times. And the Ranger, whose legacy ability can rearrange the display. Obviously, that gives him the ability to allow you to lose small or win big at the location of your choosing. Whereas in Shadows and Steam, the champions tend to be less mobile in changing the location, but more about shaping the display to setting their opportunity to win a specific battle. And an example of this would be the Rifle Mage's legacy ability. They can place a steam trap which subtracts power on a face-up location when a battle takes place there. Now, that does not have to be the current location, so if a high-value one is just made visible at the start of the display, this can be done to prepare for that high-value target and almost create an opportunity for an additional legacy ability when that fight takes place. Whereas the Clockwork Man, he can cause destruction and actually lower the value of specific locations face-up. And that's really good if you expect to lose those battles or you're trying to protect a lead. So, first set, mobility, choosing where it takes place. Second set, about preparing the battlefield to your Viking. Okay, while on the topic of Shadows and Steam being largely about shaping the battlefield, let's go ahead and look at some of the champions that specifically focus on that. We mentioned the Clockwork Man and his ability to add destruction tokens to the battlefield to reduce their value, or a very limited form of mobility. So he falls into that category, of course. Next up would be the Artificer with his minion tokens. There are many ways to take advantage of his little +1 minions that add to either the current battle or future ones for high value targets, or the ability to win by just the smallest margin, or even very specifically influence battles to be ties and then use that in effect with Fatestone strategies. And the Rifle Mage, once again, with her steam traps, she is just a part of that. I mean, it doesn't take, you know, a genius to figure out that you can really control the outcome of a large battle if you have a -3 to your opponent and a couple minions on that spot. You're quickly, you know, 3 to 4 to 5, 6 points more powerful, and you know, that battle quickly becomes yours. Okay, next up, another theme in this set is recursion, and some of the champions that do that the most effectively are the Royal Agent, with her ability to copy legacy abilities of other champions. So while not actually reusing that same champion, you can gain access to that ability again, and that can lead to an entire strategy built around other champions. Next up is the Plague Doctor, and he has the ability to bring a champion from your legacy pile, any one of them, into play and fight instead of himself. And obviously, as your legacy pile grows, you have a greater toolbox, and his the options that he provides you become even greater. Because he may be diving deeper into the pile, his legacy ability is seldom used, so unless he recurses the top one, you will rarely ever get a chance to fight him or even use his legacy ability. But the options to choose from everybody who's gone before provide incredible access to power when you want it and need it. The Illusionist, he offers pure recursion from hand, and in effect turns your hand into a legacy ability toolbox, much the way the Plague Doctor turns it into a battle ability toolbox. And so that is an entirely different strategy where you can focus on a few specific champions and really try to abuse their abilities over the course of the game. Okay, this next set of champions, they offer situational abilities or awareness. For example, the Inquisitor, his battle ability allows him to be set aside and replaced with a new champion from hand. Now, that's odd to have a scout be so strong, but it's really, really powerful because he's, you know, when you look at what's out there, you either decide, well, he's going to win, and I like that, and he stays, or you set him aside and perhaps win with the new champion you put in there, or lose with a weaker one and prepare for the future. So information that you're able to extract from your opponent is huge with him. The Alchemist has a power boosting legacy ability, as we discussed some earlier, and a very timely battle ability that can cause you to really destroy your opponent's board if it's timed right. And so she's small, but at the right time, one of the most powerful champions in the set. The Sky Pirate provides limited mobility with her legacy ability earlier in the round, but at the time, depending on the VP value of the board, can actually be the largest champion in the set. So despite being a 0, if you choose to play her at the perfect time, no one can stop her. And lastly, the Gambler. Oh man, let me tell you about this guy. He was a nightmare in playtesting because he is without a doubt the most deceptively powerful champion in the set. He will not win you battles straight up. Lots of times he won't even fight in battles. But his ability to completely add another element to the game and police how much people use their set-aside abilities and weaken their card game hand with him cannot be overestimated. It will take a while to figure out how best to use him, or understand his effects on play. But I promise you, managing the gambler or being aware of how your opponent will use theirs is absolutely crucial to victory in Shadows and Steam. So that's an overview of some of the differences between Strife Legacy of the Eternals and Strife Shadows and Steam, as well as some basic strategy overviews. And I stress that it's basic because there are many subtleties to this set, probably even more so than Legacy of the Eternals, and definitely several paths to victory, and that can be abused and adapted as you learn how your opponent plays over all 3 rounds. So, in closing, just want to thank everybody for watching and supporting us, and we really appreciate it.